Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good
welcome.
morning.
Welcome. We are in studio today.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for joining here in the middle of the holidays, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other beautiful holidays happening this time of the year. Sunita, thank you for keeping your camera on, and the same with Karen. So for all of you joining today, please feel free to turn your cameras on. We love seeing you. Even though if you're in your PJs, it's okay. And while we're giving everyone a chance, thank you, Ashley. Let's see, Kayla, I think. Thank you for joining. Now, if you wouldn't mind, and if you have a chance, if you can just type there in the chat where you're dialing in from. We always love seeing how big this community has gotten, right? We have people from all over the world, right? In the meantime, for those of you that have not met us, let us introduce ourselves, because we do know that we have few new people coming to us. My name is Sandy, and I am an Ayurvedic ambassador for Soho Mountain Healing Resort, and I am here with two beautiful humans, souls, but also really good friends, and I consider them family. We have Sneha and Mitesh. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Sandy. Always love being with you and love being with our community. So thank you for joining. And like Sandy said, we would love to see you if you don't mind turning your cameras on. But my name is Sneha. I am one of the faculty members and the dean of the Ayurvedic Institute, as well as one of the practitioners at Soham. And then I help to support our Ayurprana village by creating content, creating educational materials to help kind of spread Ayurveda, basically, at whatever level that you need it, whether it's just a 1 hour, 2 hour course or webinar, just gently kind of getting into Ayurveda, or you want to go for an entire 3-4 year program at our school or somewhere in between, like a coaching or anything. So I'm involved in a lot of the education and clinical practice.
Beautiful. And
my name is Mitesh. I am a practitioner at Soham, and I also am a teacher at the Ayurvedic Institute. I also do a lot with Ayurprana, our online educational platform. So a lot of the classes, pranayama immersions, meditation immersions, Ayurveda immersions, I do a lot online. So I see some familiar faces. So you we've seen you in other sessions.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I see we have people here from Asheville, from California, from sunny Florida. Good.
Canada.
Canada.
Sunny Canada.
Oh, sunny Canada. There you go. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining. Now, both Mitesh and Sneha already mentioned, that they help and they assist and they share their knowledge, their Ayurvedic knowledge throughout all of our different, what we call entities within our village. For those of you that are not aware of this, obviously you're coming to us through Soham. Soham is our mountain healing resort where we do our Panchakarma retreats. They're 7 days long. But we also have the Ayurvedic Institute, where Sneha already mentioned that she's the dean of the institute. We also have the Ayurprana listening room, where we here locally do live concerts, conscious concerts. We have the Asheville Yoga Center, where we do workshops and yoga teacher training.
The best yoga teacher training in the world. So
Yes.
if you're even thinking about it, come to Asheville Yoga Center. Sean, who's part of our ecosystem, he's our director there. So you don't just learn yoga, you sing, you dance, you meditate, and you learn yoga asanas. So it is a great program.
That's right. And most of you are familiar with our online programs, and all of those you can find within our Ayurprana Plus app. So just to give you a brief, introduction to the whole village, because by now you have come to us either one way or the other, but the important thing is you're part of our family. And that's all that matters. So whether you're looking for a yoga class or a retreat or a concert, we're here for you to serve you. Now, the topic today, if you ask me, I would say about 10 years ago, Sandy, what do you feel or what do you think when we talk about change or transition? my skin would have probably curled up and I would have been like contraction and felt like, oh my God, the first word that would have come to me would have probably been fear, right? Feeling skeptical. And I would like to know how many of you have felt about that, like that, when you hear, or when you know that you need to go through a change or a transition. If you wouldn't mind, just raise your hand. Or you can type there what word you correlate to change and transition. You know, whether it's pain, fear, hesitation, skepticism, terrified.
Fear and excitement.
Yeah.
Okay, love it, Carla.
Nice dichotomy, right? There is always excitement for the new, but it's like, what am I letting go with the new coming in?
100%.
Anxiety,
Yes.
fear. Okay, so a lot of
Yeah.
different emotions.
That's right. And you grief, yes. Hi, Karen. So good to see you here. Yes, and all those feelings are valid. I want you to know that they're 100% valid. You are entitled to feel the fullness of those emotions. We're not here to spiritually bypass any of it. But the idea here on this conversation today is to actually get familiar with it. So we can go from where I used to feel like 20 years ago to a point that when you look at change and transitions, you actually lean into it. How do we learn to lean into the transition and the change? How do we learn to embrace it? That doesn't mean we're not going to cry. That doesn't mean we're not going to feel it. That doesn't mean we're not going to want to hide away. But what are some of the tools, especially Ayurvedic tools, that we can learn so that we can go through all of this with grace? What is the topic today?
Can I throw something in there?
Of course.
So I think that, one of the interesting things in what we learn from the Eastern thought is that this whole concept of transition is the most sacred of them all. And I'll tell you, so what happens is when we go from nighttime to daytime, there's a transition, and that transition is absolutely magnificent. It's beautiful. The moments before the sunrise, as you start feeling the sun coming across the horizon. So when it goes from dark to, I don't know, is it dark or not day, until you see the sun rising, and now all of a sudden it is day. It is absolutely magical. And then from an Ayurvedic perspective, that transition is actually a time where you can really harness your spirit, your spirituality, your insight, your spontaneous healing, your foresight. All these things are really present during that transition that's so sacred. And then, they call them Sandhi points. The Sandhi is the meaning where it's neither day nor light, but it's something in between. And that is the most sacred point. They call it Brahma Muhurat, right? So it's one of the most sacred moments during the day for your spiritual evolution. And what's the second most sacred is actually a sunset. When you're really packing it all in and you're seeing kind of the completeness of it all. And you have that equanimity, you have that peace, and you're letting go of that day. And so that is also called a Sandhi point, right? And then you guys raise your hand. Have you heard of Saturn returns? Anyone heard of Saturn returns? Okay, well, a lot of people that study Vedic astrology, there's this concept where Saturn, where it was in your chart, when you turn about 27 or 28, your Saturn returns back to where it was in your chart. And that usually is a catapulting time that catapults you for the rest of the next 30 years. And it's really sacred. And usually there's a big shift or a big change that happens when Saturn returns. And Saturn returns every 27 to every 28 years, right? And so I just wanted to throw out there is that, the other thing of it is, if you've ever, raise your hand if you've had a spiritual experience. Anyone had a spiritual experience? Raise your hand if you've had one. Okay. So if you really think about it, when you've had that spiritual experience, you're catapulted into the unknown for a brief moment. You're unfamiliar with that space because you realize in that spiritual experience that I'm no longer just this body. I am something more. Maybe I'm all of everything that I'm surrounded by. Maybe I pop out of my body, or I have like an NDE, or whatever the case may be. So those are transition points. Those also have fear. Those also have anxiety. But then you realize that I'm far more powerful than I ever would have thought, right? And so I just wanted to also throw out the mysticism component of transitions. They're so mission critical, and that you can leverage them. You can leverage transitions to catapult yourself into really deep realms of like consciousness, really deep realms of healing, renewal, being like reborn. So I just also wanted to throw that mystical part of it that is also a part of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Well,
sharing all that. And that actually is a perfect segue to the question that I have for Sneha, which is from an Ayurvedic perspective, what are some of those major transitions that we see? Mitesh talked about like, the day and the night, and he touched on some other ones. What would you say are some of those transitions that we can also, in some ways, influence when we look at our doshas as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. That's what I was thinking also when you were talking, is that Ayurvedic perspective, because there's transitions happening all the time, right? Even just throughout the day, like Mitesh was saying, from day to night, night to day, from, early morning rising to the peak of the sun. But then even looking at the seasons, right? There's transitions within our seasons. And we see this, especially like spring and fall, when stuff is changing either from hot going slowly towards cold or cold going slowly towards hot. And then within our lives, we look at, from an Ayurvedic perspective, our transitions as a human being. We go from childhood, right, to adulthood. And then within adulthood, how we are forming everything within our being, really forming like how we live our life, our value set, our ethos that we're living by. And then slowly transitioning from adulthood, what we call, and then into Vata stage of life, which is in the elderly wisdom years. And the things that we're constantly letting go, but then grasping on to the new for this next transition.
Yeah.
So we look at transition from an Ayurvedic perspective, from the day, the micro, all the way to our entire life, and how the seasons within our life change as well.
Yeah. And we'll go into very detailed and different type of transitions or changes. Right now, we're keeping it broad just so you have a full idea from an Ayurvedic perspective. Now, during those transitions, we talked about changes of the day, or the transition in the day, the transition of the time that you're in your life, the changes in the season. What are some Ayurvedic ideas that you can share when you're feeling the imbalance? Because what we tend to feel is an imbalance within the mind, the body, and the soul. What are some of the things that we can, number one, pay attention to when we're feeling that imbalance, and number two, to realize, okay, I'm feeling it. What can I do to be proactive to readjust? So that way that transition is not so drastic in ourselves. Any thoughts?
Do you want me to start? I have some
sure.
thoughts.
Go for it.
I was thinking, when you talk about that, the biggest thing that comes to mind right now for me is balancing with the opposite. So, like you said, it is a human experience, my friends, for all of us. No matter what that transition is, the gamut of emotions that we can experience, right? Whether it's fear, scarcity, like the unknown, the unsureness, all these type of things. And in Ayurveda, one of the key principles we say is balance with the opposite, right? Let's say if it's something like a fear of unknown. There's so many variables that I will never know about any situation, period, right? That's just the way life is. But what do I know, right? What can I help in support of that? How do I balance this fear of unknown with something I do know, right? I know my ability. I know my confidence. I know where my source energy is coming from in the support in this transition, whatever that transition may be. It could be transitioning and moving to a new house. It could be whatever it may be, right? Our kids transitioning away from home, right? Being an empty nester, anything. But what are those things that can help me anchor and ground, right? The fear of unknown, when we look at a quality standpoint, it's like a fleeting, light, spacious kind of thing. I need then grounding. And how can I create that grounding? By understanding very clearly, wait, what do I know? And then also just physically doing things that ground my being, that ground my mental and my nervous system.
I love that. Absolutely love that. It's just that mental shift, right? Because we do have the power to control our mind. We may not be able to control the outcome or the change or the transition, but we do have the ability to rethink or reframe, if you will, rewire that thought within your mind. Any thoughts on your end about that?
Oh, lots. We could talk about
Please
this.
do.
We could talk about it for
Share.
hours because this is basically what we do like all day long.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one that's really beautiful, and that is that one way to manage change is to bring light or love or God or divinity into a particular moment. I'll give you an example. So you know when you're like sleeping in your bed and you open your eyes, it could be 5:30 or 6 o'clock, right? When you open them, think of the most loving thing that you could possibly think of in your life. Like if it's like the Divine Mother, or it's like God or Jesus or your puppies, whatever it is that you have like deep gratitude to. Bring that energy into your heart. First thing, when you kind of say, well, what my day is gonna, even before you look at what time is it on your watch or your phone or your clock, like before you do any of that, really fill your cup with that, because all of a sudden you've gotten this consciousness. You were asleep where you didn't have consciousness, right? You were unconscious, subconscious going on at that particular time. Now, as this gift of consciousness, as these eyes slowly flutter up, then think of something most beautiful that you can, or say the word or the name of a deity, right? So you could be like, oh, Jai Shri Krishna, or you could be like, I love you, Jesus, or whatever it is, or whatever you can think. Or if you don't really put a name to it, like bring that into your awareness and try to keep it there as you slowly become, because you'll notice this key thing to pay attention to is that when your eyes open, you're kind of there's a point where you're sleeping and awake. Are you sleeping and awake? Are you sleeping and awake? And then you kind of are in between stage. The in between stage slowly becomes conscious. You're kind of okay, wait, my body. All right, my wife's there. Like, like I'm still in this world. I'm still, what's going on? So it takes a few seconds. In the adjustment period, as you are coming into consciousness, think of the most beautiful, most light-filled thing that you could absolutely think of, and try to hold it as long as you can until you're fully alert. Does that make sense? And when you're fully alert, then slowly let go of it, and the remnant of that light, or the remnant of the divine, then will permeate your consciousness through the entire day. Okay, and you can probably guess what my second one is, okay? The second one is, do you know sometimes when you're about to go to sleep, you're kind of like, your eyes are starting to get heavy, right? You're starting to get heavy, heavy, heavy. At the same time, when your eyes start getting even, you get the first inclination that it's heavy, you're relaxing, bring that, the most lightful, loveful thought that you could absolutely muster that you've experienced from your human experience, bring that into your consciousness. And then what it does is this, and you're like, I thought I was showing up for a conversation at Ayurveda, okay? All right, let me tell you about Ayurvedically. If you do this slow transition into the divine, the merging as you're losing your consciousness, you're going back, and then when you wake up, you're bringing that energy into your day. You know what it does to your body? It lowers inflammation. Okay,
Oh, wow.
inflammation. And there's studies on that. There's studies where people have opened their hearts, they do meditation, or they do microdose of psychedelics, or whatever they do. But what's going on is their hearts open. Does that make sense? Your love opens. And when all that stuff is going on, guess what happens? Your inflammation goes down. Guess what happens? Your blood pressure goes down. Guess what happens? Your metabolic functioning of metabolizing carbohydrates and sugars increases, right? And you can Google this. You can look at the research fields. That's exactly what happens. So that's why these trends, this is just one hack, okay? And then I'm not going to get into all of them because, like I said, we could talk, you could join us for a week and we could talk about this, all right? Because there's a transition from that into a walking state, that into how you prepare yourself for your day when you're brushing your teeth and you're doing all this stuff, taking a shower, doing your yoga, doing your meditation. Then you're transitioning into your eating style. And then from your eating style, you're transitioning into your work. And then from your work, you're taking your lunch break. Like literally, if you think about it, there's changes and there's things that are going on throughout the day. And Ayurveda really is, whether it's seasonal, like Sneha was talking about, when you're going from summer to fall, where you're honoring the equinoxes and the solstice, when you're honoring the lunar calendars, everything in a cycle, there's a moment where you can honor yourself, your highest self, and through food, through cleansing, through all these particular things, but ultimately, it is to bring you into deep balance and deep awareness. So hopefully that was useful.
Wow, immensely. Like the number of transitions that he mentioned right there, I mean, it was packed full with the number of transitions that we go through the day, the night. And those, most of them are unconscious, right? Changes and transitions that we go through. Now, how do we bring that now into the consciousness? That is the idea, that one thing is for certain, and that is change. Change is always going to be happening day in, day out, every day, every year. We are meant to be changing. But now, how do we bring that into our consciousness so those things are happening unconsciously every single day? We now can go through it with grace and with gratitude. So let's talk about that because it's not always easy. That is the reality. So let's talk about some of the harder changes that we go through life. Some of the ones that are not as settled, perhaps the loss of a job or a change of a job, perhaps the kids, leaving the house and now you're empty nester. You have that happiness for the kids leaving, but at the same time you're feeling empty. There is a reason why it's called empty nester. Maybe the loss of a loved one. It could be a pet, it could be a family member, it could be a friend. Now, with these practices and these conversations, the idea is to allow us to get to a place that we embrace the change. So, what are some of the things that you would say? And we can pick maybe one change in particular if we want, or if any of you would like to share a change that you're going through, we're happy to either unmute you and have the conversation here live, or we can actually provide advice and talk through it. So feel free to type any changes that you have been going through or that you know you're going to be going through so we can address them and talk through them. But what are your thoughts on those more, I would say, perhaps typically heavier?
Yep. I would say just my experience, especially these past few years, right? It was a huge transition and a change from like our entire institution moving from New Mexico to North Carolina. Massive change all around, from community, friends, family, right? The entire school, work, all of this stuff. Like every single transition that could happen happened basically.
Moving personally,
right? All of these
family.
things. And I'll tell you my mistakes that I made.
Okay.
So it's more about my experience is what I can offer in this. When we go through these transitions, or I should say, I'll take ownership. When I went through this transition, I thought of like all these unknowns and all the stuff that needed to happen for the transition to happen. And I just got focused in on that piece of it. I lost all kind of self-care in that moment for myself, which caused me actually to be more scattered, to be a little bit more like ungrounded, to be more stressed out, honestly. So I have learned from that situation. Now, when I have a transition, I've noticed this in the past couple of years, that I actually go deeper and full-fledged, like into my own personal care. And it doesn't matter what I realize what that transition is. It's just, what do I need to do to take care of myself in that moment? Because one, I realized I stopped judging myself. Like, this is a human experience. This is not a bad thing. This is not a right thing. This is not a good thing. Like, all the judgment goes out of the window. And then my self-care, and the self-care is individualized, right? It could be just doing a nice oil massage to yourself. It could be doing that daily little meditation practice, breath work, going for a walk out in nature, whatever self-care looks like for each person. But having that, I realized, because I've had some other transitions that have happened, in the past couple of years, but I went super deep into get back to my personal care in those transitions. And I realized the smoothness of the transition that occurred.
Oh, wow. It's amazing because I know for sure I've been there. Everything that you said resonates with me so strongly for any of you that are feeling like that. So you had the realization that I do need to do and take care of my own self. Now, typically, when you're a caregiver or when you're going through a transition, or at least for the kids or other family members, is hard.
It's super hard.
It's super hard because you feel that if you take time for yourself,
Yeah.
you're being selfish.
No.
So what are your thoughts there? How do we deal with that mental guiltiness
Yeah.
of, I love you and I know I need to be here for you and take care of you, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I must take care of myself.
100%. And that's where I talk about that judgment, right? It's
Yep.
so easy. We are our biggest critic,
Yes.
right? I will give the most guilt or shame to myself that anybody else in the world could give.
Totally.
But what I realize is I can't give to you if I'm not full, right? I have to take that time. And in that filling, like I said, doesn't have to be like these 5-hour long things or these hiatuses, right? It's just a nice little consistency that I'm sipping on every day. How do I sip on that water to refill, rejuvenate, rehydrate me, right? I'm using water as the analogy, but whatever that thing is. And I realize whenever I do this self-care, it creates space in my being. And then in that space, the confusion and the chaos start quieting down. And I actually get, like what Mitesh is saying, the light coming in, the gratitude coming in, the love coming in. So it's more about in the self-care, I'm indirectly creating space for myself. And it could be literally 10 minutes of self-care every day to whatever it is for that human being, right? Just taking a nice hot bath in the evening time and shutting it all down. Lock that bathroom door. Don't let anybody in. Play your beautiful music. Light some candles. Like, it can be the simplest things, but I realized the simplest things were the things I was letting go of in those moments of unknown and fear and loss. But I realized that's what I actually need.
Amazing, amazing. And I see Karen saying, this is perfect for me at this time. Thank you. So I'm sure a lot of you are, relating to this. How about you? What do you think?
I'm gonna tell you the real deal, Holyfield.
That's what I expect. That's what I expect.
Put the task out in front of all of us, okay?
Self-care.
Yes.
Take care of yourself.
No. Taking it up a level. So the self-care is right, without a shadow of doubt, is a great mechanism. It is a great tool. It accesses your balance in your life. So no matter what emotional stuff you're going through, you will conquer. It will put balm on the wound and help you heal. That being said, in addition and to that, what we really have to do, y'all, this is it. I would write this down. Understand that I am a divine being. I am a divine being beyond this body. Okay? And what is the implications of that? I'm a divine being beyond this body. I came into this body to have a party, and that party is like an incredible movie. I'm going to have my ups and I'm going to have my downs. I'm going to have my days when I'm really well. I'm going to have days when I'm sick. I'm going to have relationships that are joyous. I'm going to have relationships that are going to crush me. I'm going to cry. I'm going to get my heart broken. And it is all part of it because I am a divine being manifesting in this body to enjoy the human experience. But with that human experience comes shit. Do you get what I'm saying? It's just part of it. But you know what comes along with that shit? Comes rainbows and ocean and the mountains and the birds and children and laughter, right? So, and you couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah.
You can't have black without white. You can't have color without contrast. Does that make sense? And so to deeply, however you can, through whatever spiritual lineage or whatever that you're going through, you have to find your way to understand that I am this divine light. And second, the second component of it is like, what is karma? What is karma? Like walk the path of understanding what karma is and how actions, events, human beings, relationships all relate to each other in this beautiful soup called human condition. So at the end of the day, right, if you look at all the sacred texts, no matter if it's like, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, or if it's the Bible, or if it's the Quran, or whatever it is, at the end of the day, that I am divinity. Like I have that within me. And there is no shortcut. Your suffering will never ultimately reduce until you know the truth. And the truth is that you're a divine being having this physical experience. And then the karma is just the stew and the game of what's going on. And those two things, you're like, well, how does that help me today? Sneha gave you the tips that help you today. Okay, the self-care and all of that. But what I'm saying is plant the seed in your subconscious and find how you can match this vibration, and without a shadow of a doubt that you are a divine being, and that will remedy your any suffering, the deepest suffering.
But I think also in the self-care aspect, right, creating that space, allows this to come in.
Right.
Right? Otherwise, I'm
said.
just creating blockages by thinking about the next task and the next unknown
That's right.
versus just creating that space and allow this light to come in because it's always there, but I choose sometimes not to see it or I forget it.
Yeah.
If I sit on my yoga mat and I roll around and I do my breath work and I ask God, if I ask her, all I need is your love, then bam, you probably will feel that. Does that make sense? So I do agree with Sneha.
Agreed.
That's right.
Agreed.
Yeah. We can absolutely not forget that we're living a human experience. We're spirit souls, but we are living a human experience. So how do we take care of that? Now, please do me a favor. Everyone here, type in there, I am divine. Let's just go ahead and send that to the universe. That is going to be your end of 2025 gift to yourself. Just type it in there. You're sending that energy to the universe. I'm getting goosebumps as I'm saying it. And you are now planting that seed that Mitesh was talking about. So go for it. Feel it to the fullest. Embrace that. You are divine. You are divine. You are light. You are love.
And read every comment. It's like doing a mantra. I'm getting goosebumps. I am divine. I'm a divine being. I'm divine. I'm just getting goosebumps up and
Yes.
down my spine. That's a mantra. This is like a mala. And the comments thread is literally like, I am divine. I am divine.
Love it. Yeah.
Love it. So
Capital
you all,
letter, small letter.
you all made my day. Y'all rock.
Beautiful. Now, as we go through these transitions, another one that has helped me, in addition to, making sure that I'm taking care of myself and making sure that I connect with the divine, which is ultimately you and is the universe, because we are all one. That's the premises of it, right? The other thing is, for me personally, has taken time to learn how not to resist. Now, this is a big one because when there's resistance to the change, there's pain. When there is pain, there's human suffering, and that is self-created. I'm not going to undermine the changes that you may be going through, but we have the power within to look at that change as something that we actually are grateful for as difficult that change may be. And I'm not going to lie, I personally myself have been through quite a bit of changes this past year. And most of you know it because we've talked about it before. My husband having the lung liver transplant and this whole thing, then diagnosed with cancer. But I could have felt like the victim. I could have felt like, why me? We're going through all this. And I'm not going to lie, I felt like that a few times. But what brought me back up, it was leaning into it. It's actually embracing it. And it's not like I'm embracing for my husband to be sick, not at all. But just embracing that change, asking myself, what am I here to learn? What is the lesson here? Oh, no.
I love this lady so much. She's gone through a lot in the last year, and she's filled my cup over the year.
Oh, goodness. So how can we embrace the difficulty? How can we be grateful for it? That is the real emotional, mental, physical, and most importantly, spiritual shift that we take in our lives. So how do you feel about resistance? And what are some of the things that you would recommend? And I'll talk about some of the things I did, but I'm just curious because it's so hard.
It's hard. Resistance is a natural thing, right? It's that first area of defense that pops up like, I don't think so, that kind of thing, right?
The ego too.
Yeah.
Talking.
And what I realize in myself, like if I really look deep down, it's this need of control. And understanding that in myself, I've been able to loosen that grip. And then in that loosening of the grip, I realized kind of what Mitesh was saying is I am always taken care of, like from the divine, from beauty all around me. And if I think I can do a better job than that, then my God, am I wrong? And I've proven wrong every single time. Anytime that I've actually had the strength and the courage to literally just let go and just be in that flow, it's always just been beautiful. And that voice, that light does come and just like, I've got you. Honestly, like that is my ultimate remedy.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel resistance? 100%, right? I still feel those human emotions, but as soon as that resistance comes about, it's been a thing where subconsciously or consciously, it just comes about. Wait, why are you resisting, Sneha? Right? That question comes at like, what are you so scared of? What are you trying to control? And just like loosen it and just see what happens, kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's incredible because you went like this just now.
Yeah.
But our physical body actually feels it. When we mentally do that release and emotionally feel it in the body, that moment that you say, I am in your hands. I'm letting it all go because I know I'm taken care of. Everything that is happening for a good divine reason. Your whole contraction, your body, your organs, your breath, your mind, all of a sudden relaxes, right? And you allow yourself to go through it with what I keep calling grace. How about you?
I'm just gonna copy and paste because I mean I guess it's got to be. I mean that is the answer, and I would say that over the last 2 or 3 years, in my deepest of meditations or my deepest of pranayama, me and Sneha do these silent retreats sometimes when everything absolutely stills. Generally, the only way it does still for me is if I let go, and when I let go is exactly what Sneha says. I hear a voice that says, I've got you, like the Divine Mother just says, I've got you, and you just feel like safe. And now I've got you, even though the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows of life, but generally I would say yes, to totally just to let go, to be in the flow, and to hear that you will hear that voice if you fully let go, because there are entities beyond our bodies, like I can tell you that without a shadow of a doubt. And those entities are usually whispering to us all the time. And you're like, well, they don't whisper to me. I was like, you know what? They probably do, but you just gotta relax a little, you just kind of gotta let go a little. And then you will see, hear, feel, everyone is different for each person. Someone may feel it in their heart, someone may have thoughts come into their head, some people may literally hear sounds or things, but I think that it sounds like an esoteric solution, but it's really what Sneha, I think she said it really well, is if I let go, then I will feel, I will know that I'm held. Does that make sense? And that really helps in all transitions.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that poem, and many of you probably have heard the poem, The Footprints in the Sand poem, right? Where the person's walking there, and there's two sets of footprints on the sand. And it's a conversation with God of saying, I'm always next to you. I'm always walking with you. And then the person's like, but then there's only one set of footprints. What happened? And God's like, it's because I started carrying you.
Yeah.
I never left. If anything, I've just embraced you even more so, kind of thing. So, yeah.
It sounds like, I feel like we're at church. Like, I thought we were going to talk about Ayurveda and the transitions of the seasons and how you need a detox, but I feel like we're at church.
Where reality is like when you go through changes, especially these, what we may think are heavier or more difficult in life, it's not only about, the body, it's mental, it's physical, it's emotional, it's circumstantial, it's relationship, it's, the collective too. Like, there's countries that go through changes collectively as well. Now, I do want to acknowledge Karen because she put a message in there saying thank you, because both Karen and I were going through similar situations, and I'm not going to share a whole lot. But, what I want to say about that is you have a community here. It just happened that Karen and I ended up talking, client in Ayurvedic ambassador here, conversation over the phone, at a very difficult time and transition in her life as well as mine, and the bonding. And it went beyond of just being a fun conversation. And I want to share that with all of you, because if you're going through a difficult time, you're not alone. The reality is that most human beings are going through something similar or have been through something similar. And we are a support mechanism here for all of you. Whether it is that you need someone on the phone or you need advice on how to bring your doshas back into balance, or you need to do that self-care, going into a retreat, whatever that may be, we're here to support you. And just feel free to reach out at any time. So now there are other transitions that are a lot more difficult to digest and process, or even to embrace, which is the loss of a loved one. And I want to address that because with this topic, and actually with Mitesh, we were just talking about, life and death. And oftentimes we tend to see this as the duality of the two, but reality is our soul is untouched. Our soul lives forever over many human experiences. We are not our body. I know this is hard to digest. And for someone that may be hearing it for the first time, they may be like, what are you talking about? I don't even believe in past lives or future lives or reincarnation. And I get it. If you're here is for a reason, just take that little seed and plant it somewhere and let it grow. But the transition of losing someone that we love is a hard one because you're no longer having that physical experience. However, if we do take our mind into that place where we are not our bodies and we are able to continue to live this spiritual life, the transition can be a little bit more graceful and less painful. Again, back to the premises is we're not looking at don't suffer because you're leaving someone behind, or we're not saying don't cry. To the contrary, feel it to the fullest. But how can we embrace death? That is the question. Any thoughts?
You want to go?
Well, it makes me think of, Dr. Ladd recently did a talk around death, right? Death and dying and so forth. And sometimes when we go through this transition, we're crying of the fear of me now being left here by myself without X, Y, and Z, right? And I'm worried so much of what will happen. And then there's also this loss of love, and emptiness, a void that kind of gets created in that process, right? But then to your point, it's what's happening with that person, right? What are they needing? What are they ready for, right? Nothing comes to us until we are truly ready for it. So what are they transitioning into, and how can I truly support that transition? 100%, I can definitely mourn the loss of missing the companionship or whatever that may be, right? On this physical relative world. But if I really put myself of like, wait, what is that person needing? It's just like if they were needing to move somewhere, like let's say they're still here, they didn't pass away, I'd be like, yeah, I would be really supportive of that human being. You need to go and do this. You need to go and experience this as your next phase in your life, right? It's like this is their next phase in whatever it is that soul's journey needs to go to.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you kept saying the word transition, because oftentimes when we talk about death, we see it as an end. And it is really a transition, is the next evolution, is the next chapter in our soul's life. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's interesting. I've got one kind of funny thought, but it's like helpful. You're gonna be, oh my God.
Always count on you bring
All
the
right,
funny.
so I'm gonna throw that out there, but that'll be my second thought. But one interesting thing happened is like, if you think about times where you have been either near death or you've had a jolting experience, you probably tapped into your own spirit. So I'll give you an example. About 2 years ago, I don't remember how long ago it was now, but my appendix ruptured. So Sneha always yells at me because I got a really high,
2 years ago, I forget.
I had a really high pain tolerance, right? And so I until I couldn't move anymore, until I was like laying face down in my bathroom floor, I didn't think that I had to go to the hospital, which was really dumb because when I got to the hospital, it was really, really, really busy, and so they didn't check me into the ER. I was there for like 7 hours before they checked me in. And as soon as they checked me in, they realized that I could die because my appendix ruptured like hours ago. And then they took me straight into surgery. It was like emergency type situation. And so what happened was like literally they're like, we're taking you to the operating table now, like now. But what interesting thing that happened during that time is I popped out of my body. I was in so much pain. I was in so like it was like my whole abdomen was in like so much pain that I felt like I popped out of my body. And when I popped out of my body, I literally could see it was really. And this is gonna sound really like this first part's woo woo and the second part's funny. Okay. And then I literally could see the karma of the person next to me. He had collapsed, and the nurse was like, "Hey, what happened?" He was being non-responsive. And I was like, oh, he fell down his steps in his room. And she was, do you know this guy? I was like, no, no, no. And I thought that she might think I'm crazy or delusional, but I was actually seeing things outside of my body. And then like, so I told her what happened to the guy. And then I didn't want them to put me in an insane asylum. So they asked me, well, how do you know that, sir? And I was like, oh, because I meditate a lot. I still remember saying, oh, I meditate a lot. Don't worry. Then I realized, let me keep my mouth shut. But that feeling of, was I close to death or not? I don't know. But I could tell you I was in so much pain that I popped out of my body. And that really gave me, there are a few instances in my life. That's just one of them. And the reason why I use that instance, because it could be, you could have had a similar experience, right? If you're close to death, or you've had the death of a loved one when you were young and you felt like they communicated to you. We just did a podcast with Aditi, and she runs the Conscious Center for Dying here. It's a nonprofit in Asheville. So we just did the podcast with her a couple of days ago. So it'll be on our platform, Ayurprana Plus. Check it out, or we're on Spotify or YouTube, okay? You can check out that podcast on death. But Jeremy and, Aditi, we're all talking about times where someone from another life, we felt their presence like very deeply. I know you feel the presence of your mom a lot, And so I think that if we kind of really tap into the experiences that we've had that show us that we don't die at this death, and we hold tight with those, right? I think a lot of times that gives us the light to get through the darkness when we have death or when we have someone going through a transition and we can't make sense of it all, like whether that person was young. I know Stan and I, we used to run a youth group when we were kids. Stan and I did. And the most brightest soul out of all the youth, the most dynamic, most loving, most, insightful young, he passed when he was 12 or 13. Does that make sense? And he was part of our youth group.
He had cancer.
He had cancer. So how do you make sense of these things, right? And I think what will end up making sense is when we really tap into our extra body experiences and we realize the person did not die, that they did transition. And the last thing, I'll tell you the funny thing, but it's worth watching, okay? Go on YouTube and listen to Matt Frazier. Okay. And so Matt, does anyone raise your hand? Anyone know who Matt Frazier is? All right, Matt Frazier is a medium, right? And now you're like, oh my gosh, this call is really good. I don't know what's up with this call today, okay? So Matt Frazier, and I'm not like, it just seems he is so on point when he talks to people and their loved ones that have passed. And every message is really beautiful. It's like not like, oh, your person's burning in hell, or it's never like that. Generally, it is like, oh, so and so says hello. Like David says hello, or like whatever the case may be. And then they tell him things that only that person, that relationship would mean. And these people end up bawling, crying. Okay. So now I just think it's worth looking up Matt Frazier, look at some of his videos with like millions of views, and he does it all the time. And just an inkling into we are more than this body and that we don't cease at death, that we transition. Matt Frazier, you'll have fun. It's kind of entertaining. But maybe, just maybe you'll be like, you know what? We don't end at this death. It's more of a transition into a different plane. So he's really cool. You can check. He's really young too. He's like, I think he's in his 20s or 30s. He's a really young guy. He's had mediumship. And I have another friend of mine here in Asheville. I don't want to go buck wild here. That actually has a really good friend of mine. She just told me about this recently. But she's had mediumship ever since she was a young child. But generally what happens is people, they don't believe. They think people are crazy. I think there's something wrong with their head, but generally we have these events that are going on. Last thing, look at the telepathy tapes, okay? And I'll give you another one. Check out the telepathy tapes. Do it without fail. Check out Matt Frazier, and that will let you really kind of understand that, hey, I am more than this body, and there's realities way beyond this. And guess what? I do not die when I take my last breath. I go for a party up in the stars. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps.
I love that. And I see a comment here. I met John Edwards before becoming famous because her 12-year-old niece had died. Yes. Now, with that transition, right, it's you get to the point where you got to begin to think about what is to be left behind and what is the new opportunity that is opening up. Because with every change and with every transition, whether you are having a family member that is passing or whether it is any of the other transitions that we talked about, there is something that we're leaving behind and something that it's coming new. And how do we go through it and how we open up, thinking not only about what is happening, infatuated about the suffering of the moment, but actually trying to look at that North Star, which now brings the positivity into the change as well. Like all these new things, this new opportunity. So how are some ways that you would say you can look into what's ahead, not necessarily completely without pain, but with the positivity of I'm open to what's to come?
Yeah. I mean, for me, this is going to sound so simple, but one of my teachers always says, you know, if someone is annoying you, right? Or someone has upset you or something like that, right? We have a so-called negative judgment on somebody, whatever that may be. He says, the minute you think that negative thought, that one negative thought, think of 5 positives of that person. And I think of this type of situation when I think of these type of transitions, because it's so easy for us to be habitualized to think of all the scary things, the unknowns, the negatives, the bad things, right? Yeah. But instead, can I see all of the positive things? It's like I'm rewiring my entire paradigm. Yeah. And it's something that has significantly helped me in just putting that aspect of, wait, how am I looking at the situation, right? And it's so simple. We've all heard it, right? That cup is half full or half empty. Yeah. Like whatever analogy you want to use, but can I truly see the world as fullness, as love, as joy, as like abundance, right? Because it's so easy to be in the exact opposite of like scarcity.
That's right. Yeah. And I actually have a really good example. When I was a little girl, I was 12. My mom was introducing me to this whole premises of many lives, many masters in reincarnation, past lives, future lives. And I came to my mom and I said, okay, since you're so bright and smart, how do you justify the death of a baby that hasn't even come into this world? A mom who just had that baby and the baby passed. She said, honey, that means that baby completed the cycle the minutes that lived. Even though if it is just, you know, inside of your womb and it never becomes alive, it was already alive. That was the completion of that cycle. So being able to see that to me, from that point in time at 12 years old, reframe that there is really no ending. There is the completion of a cycle in order for us to enter into the new one, whatever that may be. What are your thoughts?
Well, I wanted to highlight one thing that you said that I think you just said very quickly, and that is that raise your hand if you own that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, or read it. Anyone read that book? Okay.
It's a great book.
I'm telling you right now,
I'll put it in here.
Buy it for yourself. Give it to somebody for Christmas. Me and Sneha have given away like 30 to 40 of those copies to friends. We usually buy it and then we give it away. You should buy it and then give it away. It gives you so much understanding of this life and then beyond. I think it's really worth. I think it tells you about reality and divine beings and all kinds of really cool stuff. And the person was like, you know, borderline agnostic or atheist, you know, like, you know, his religion, he had a certain religion, but he wasn't really into it, you know, and he was a psychiatrist that did regression therapy. And then I'm not going to tell you this won't give away the book, but he's doing regression therapy with somebody and she pops into a prior life and he dedicates his entire life to studying this whole phenomenon. So I do think that will help you learn so much. I actually give it to teenagers because one of the things that we think we have to think about death when we're like 50 and above. But you know what? No, like, you know, have your 13, 15, 17-year-olds, they can read this book. It is a fantastic book. We've given it to at least, you know, 10 or 12 of our nieces or nephews, you know, and they have gotten so much out of it. So I just wanted to highlight that because you just said that. Go ahead, Sam.
I was going to plug one more book. I mean, it's like a book club now. All of a sudden.
We can do a book club. Why not?
It's more like storytelling. It's a really easy read. It's called Forgetting Time. Oh. And it's awesome. It's similar to this Many Lives, Many Masters, but it involves children.
Oh, nice.
And again, has like truth and reality to it, but in a beautiful story form. But it was a beautiful book. A friend gifted that to me and I read it, but it was an awesome book too.
Nice. It was so beautiful also to see. I think it was Jasenia that
Yeah.
said that she read that book when she was 20 and she found it again about a week ago and she's now 47. So
And we've never mentioned that book.
No,
yeah,
first
and
time.
We've never mentioned that book in any of our sessions. So
everything happens for a
Yeah.
reason. And also think through the people that come into your life, and everyone is a master in your life. There is a reason for that connection. So yes, well, we're getting here to the end, and I want to make sure that we open it up for any questions that you may have. I know it's been a jam-packed full of knowledge and wisdom and thoughts, ideas.
I hope it was worth it.
Let's hope. Let's hope.
I think we just
Genuine sharing.
That's
pretty much
right.
like how we have coffee with Sandy. This is kind of like, I think we just like hung out and there were like cameras on. So
Let's see. So grateful for this soul soothing session. Thank you, Danielle. Let's see. Any questions, comments?
you can unmute or raise your hand if you want.
Please
We
do.
have any? We have 4 minutes.
I think Karen is leaning
Beautiful.
in.
Ashley.
Let's see. Ashley, great start to my new journey.
May I offer one thing?
Please.
I would say like one thing that I'm doing literally in the new year, right after the New Year's, is I'm going to do an X number of days of just silent time. And I would say if you're going to gift yourself anything for 2026, gift yourself a little space and a little silence. And it doesn't matter how much. It doesn't have to be a week or several days. It can be just 1 hour. It could be something. Gift yourself the space and silence, because then all the other things of light, of divine, of hearing where the universe wants to guide you, it will all come flooding in that silence.
Yes.
It just turns the volume down. Mitesh uses that phrase a lot. It just turns the volume down on the chaos and the noise that's occupying all that other space.
Yeah, absolutely. Disconnect to reconnect.
Yeah.
Just take that time. And right now we're going to go through the transition of the holidays and family, which is beautiful. Embrace it all. But don't forget about yourself. Don't forget to take the time as you embrace the new year. And hopefully with these conversations, you're looking at change and transition through a different lens. Hopefully this has given you hope and have given you a different way of looking at it, in a way that you are going to be more graceful with yourself and with others as you go through it, because change is inevitable. It's going to happen. It's part of life. So hopefully you will embrace it now differently. So with that, anything else you would like to add?
No, I just, my prayers are that may you all find light. May you all know that you're loved. And may 2026 be a year where you bring that light and love into yourself and into your family. So I just offer that prayer for all of you.
Remember, you're divine. Say that over and over again. That is your mantra today, okay? Well, thank you so much for joining. We love you. With this live session, we're ending the 2025 year, and we look forward to seeing you all again every single month in 2026. I hope you have a beautiful holiday, and big heart to you all. We love you.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.